I am 24 now. I have 4 years of scars that still itch when it rains. And I am the only one left to tell you what happened in the abandoned Beef World plant on Route 9, Ohio, 1987. The night the lights flickered out, the smell of burning hair filled the air, and a low metallic hum rose from the conveyors. Someone screamed, then there was only the sound of wet tearing, like meat being ripped apart by invisible teeth. I still hear that hum in my dreams, and the memory makes my skin crawl. The files were burned. The bodies were fed to the incinerators. But I remember the smell of charred flesh and copper-sweet blood. And the truth needs to be heard before I die. If you're listening, you're safe for now. Subscribe to keep this archive alive. If you see something in the woods, don't look back. It was a cold October night when I took the graveyard shift at Beef World. My job was simple: monitor the conveyor belts for jammed carcasses. The plant had been shut down 2 years earlier, but the city kept it on life support as a storage depot. I walked in with my flashlight, the beam cutting through the thick dust that hung like gray cobwebs. The first thing I noticed was the smell, iron and rot mixed with something sweet, almost like burnt sugar. Then I heard a soft click-clack coming from the far end of the line where the old slaughter floor used to be. It sounded like metal striking metal, but there were no tools left. I moved toward the sound. The concrete was slick with something dark that clung to my boots. When I reached the middle of the hall, a figure stood in the shadows. He wore the faded uniform of a former USDA inspector, tattered blue shirt, stained with old grease. His face was hidden under a rusted steel mask that covered his eyes and mouth. "Jimmy," he whispered, voice like grinding gears. "Don't look." My name is Jimmy. I was 21 then, fresh out of the army looking for work. The man's words made my blood freeze. I raised my flashlight. The beam caught on something that made my throat close up. A massive slab of meat hanging from a chain, its surface covered in black veins and pulsing like a heart. The masked figure lifted his hand. From beneath the mask came a thin, silver filament that snapped forward and pierced the meat slab with a wet pop. The flesh rippled, then seemed to melt away, revealing a hollow cavity inside, filled with a swarm of tiny, black insects that shimmered in the light like oil on water. Before I could scream, the insects surged out, covering my face and nose. Their bodies were cold as ice. They entered my lungs with each breath. The mask slipped, revealing a gaunt, pale face, eyes empty of any human light. He smiled, teeth sharpened to points, gleaming like tiny knives. My vision blurred. I felt something rip at the back of my throat, and then, nothing but darkness. I awoke hours later, if you can call it waking, on a rusted metal table in a room that looked like an old cutting room. The walls were lined with stainless steel hooks, each bearing a hanging carcass of something half human, half beast. Blood pooled at my feet, thick and black as oil. A voice crackled over the intercom. All personnel must remain in containment until further notice. The tone was synthetic, monotone, but there was a faint echo of a child's giggle underneath it. I tried to move. My hands were bound with thick leather straps that dug into my skin. Above me, a massive meat grinder rumbled awake. Its teeth turned slowly, grinding down on an unseen mass. The sound grew louder until the grinder released a spray of bright red fluid, blood mixed with something thicker, like melted cheese and raw flesh. It splattered across the floor, soaking my shoes. The masked figure returned, this time without his mask. His skin was stretched tight over bone, veins bulging black as ink. He held a clipboard, the paper stained red. "You're lucky I found you," he said. "Most never make it out of the first night." Behind him, a hulking shape lumbered forward, the thing that had been lurking in the shadows of the plant for years. It stood 8 feet tall, its skin a patchwork of rotting flesh and exposed bone. Its limbs were too long, fingers ended in ragged blackened claws. Its mouth opened, revealing rows upon rows of teeth made from broken screws, each one gleaming menacingly. "It calls itself the rot thing," the man whispered, as if sharing a secret. "It feeds on bone marrow and fear." He pointed to my throat, where I could feel a cold pressure building, as if something was trying to force its way out. The rot thing lunged at me. Its claws tore through my shirt, ripping skin from my arms with a wet shredding sound. Blood poured out in thick streams, mixing with the black liquid that coated everything. I felt the sensation of bone being pulled, like a dentist yanking a tooth, except it was my femur being ripped away by unseen claws. I screamed until my throat bled. The scream turned into a guttural growl as something inside me started to change. My own teeth began to sharpen, the enamel turning black and brittle. I could feel them splintering, a sensation like shards of glass moving under my tongue. The rot thing did not kill me, it converted me. My body began to heal at an unnatural speed, but every new piece of flesh that grew was covered in the same black, oily veins as the meat on those hanging carcasses. I could hear whispers in my head, voices of those who had already been taken. "You will serve," they hissed. "You will feed." Over the next weeks, I watched other survivors being dragged in by unseen hands. They were hunted down one by one, while the rot thing prowled the corridors, its screech echoing like a dying engine. Some of them fought back, most didn't stand a chance. I saw Dee, a teenage girl with bright pink hair, cornered near the refrigeration unit. She screamed as her legs were crushed beneath the weight of an invisible force, bones snapping audibly while the rot thing fed on the marrow. Another night, I found myself in a room full of monitors showing static footage of empty hallways. One screen displayed my own face, now half human, half rotten, staring back at me with hollow eyes. A faint metallic hum pulsed through the speakers, syncing with my heartbeat. The masked man returned again, this time holding a syringe filled with a thick amber liquid. "This will help you adapt," he said. He injected it directly into my spine. The serum burned like acid, but it also made my senses sharpen. I could now hear the faint rustle of insects crawling on walls, feel the vibrations in the concrete as they moved toward hidden passages. I realized then that the plant was a living organism. Its steel beams pulsed with an unseen rhythm, its conveyor belts turned like veins carrying blood through a heart. The rot thing was not just a monster, it was the plant itself. It used every piece of machinery to trap and consume anything that entered. 3 months after my first encounter, I found a child locked in a refrigerated storage unit. A boy named Aaron, his eyes wide with terror. He was shivering, clutching a torn photograph of his mother. "They took Mom," he whispered. She's feeding them." I tried to free him, but the door was sealed by an automated lock that required a code I didn't know. The code was etched on a rusted plate beside the door, 423-976. When I entered it, the lock clicked open with a clank that sounded like a bone breaking. Inside, Aaron lay on a cold steel table surrounded by vats of bubbling liquid, the same amber serum from before. He was half transformed already, his skin glistened with black veins and his eyes were milky white. "Help me," he begged, voice barely audible over the humming of the refrigeration units. I reached for him, but as my hand touched his shoulder, a sharp pain erupted in my chest. Something inside me, maybe the rot thing, maybe my own conscience, ripped a piece of bone from my ribcage, sending it clattering across the floor. The fragment was blackened and jagged, shaped like a tiny tooth. Aaron screamed as his body convulsed, his spine elongated, vertebrae popping out one by one, until they formed a spine that resembled an insect's antennae. He twisted in agony before collapsing into a pile of flesh that began to dissolve into the same oily sludge we had seen earlier. His blood spattered onto my face, and I tasted metal and copper on my tongue. The masked man stood at the doorway, his expression unreadable. "You have done well," he said softly. Now you understand why we are needed." He lifted a hand and pointed toward the plant's central control room. A massive steel door opened, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with thousands of moving parts, gears, pistons, belts, all synchronized in perfect, terrifying harmony. At the center stood a throne made of fused bone and metal, upon which sat a figure draped in a cloak stitched from human skin. Its face was hidden, but its voice resonated through my mind. "You are now part of us." I tried to run, but the floor beneath me turned into slick black oil that pulled at my legs like tentacles. I felt my muscles tearing, my organs grinding against each other as I was forced toward the throne. In a final act of defiance, I grabbed a rusted pipe and hurled it at the figure's face. The pipe struck true, cracking open a gaping wound in its mask, revealing rows of gleaming white teeth that dripped with a viscous black fluid. The creature let out an ear-splitting screech, and for a moment, everything stopped. Then it lunged forward, swallowing the pipe whole, crushing it against its gums. With a sudden surge of strength, I broke free from the oil's grip and stumbled backward into a wall of steel doors that slammed shut behind me with an ear-shattering clang. I was alone now, the only survivor left in this nightmare. My body trembled, my skin peeled away in patches as if shedding old layers. Blood seeped from every pore, staining the concrete floor crimson. I realized there was no escape, the plant would keep feeding, and I would become part of its endless cycle. I died on a cold night in December, my heart finally giving out as the rot thing's humming reached a crescendo that vibrated through every bone in my body. My last thought was of Jimmy, the name I once wore proudly before it became a curse. When they found me, the bodies were discovered months later by a cleaning crew who'd heard rumors of missing workers. There was only one thing left untouched. An old cassette recorder perched on a rusted pipe, its tape still spinning slowly. The recorder crackled to life as soon as the crew entered, playing back my voice in a distorted whisper. "If you hear this, I'm gone now. My name was Jimmy. I was 21 when they took me. If you're listening, you have a chance. Don't trust the humming. Don't eat anything that smells like iron. Run before it finds you." The crew called in backup. When investigators opened the cassette case, they found a new tape already loaded, waiting to continue the testimony. The voice on that new recording was different, softer, trembling with fear but also resolve. "My name is D. I took over Jimmy's logs after his body was discovered in the basement of Beef World. He didn't make it out. I'm telling his story now because if you hear this, maybe you can stop whatever lives down there." Dee went on, describing how she saw shadows moving in the ventilation shafts, hearing whispers that sounded like metal scraping bone, and finally, how she managed to escape through a maintenance tunnel that led to an abandoned railway line. She warned anyone who would listen. "The plant is still alive. It watches us. If you hear the humming again, run." Dee's testimony continues to this day, archived on a forgotten server in a government bunker. But somewhere beneath the rusted steel of Beef World, the rot thing still waits, its teeth made of screws gleaming in darkness, ready for the next soul who dares to wander down Route 9. I am dead now, but my voice lives on through Dee's words. I carry scars that never healed, both physical and mental. Part of me is still down there in the dark, trapped within the machinery that feeds on bone and fear. No one believes me. They call it fiction, a hoax cooked up by bored teenagers on forums. But if you ever hear a low metallic hum echoing through abandoned warehouses, or smell burnt hair mixed with copper, remember this: don't look back. Run. Don't stop until you're out of the darkness. And if you find a cassette recorder spinning in an empty hallway, press play. Someone might be waiting to warn you. Share this. Someone needs to know. My name is Dee. I took over Jimmy's logs after they found his body in the basement of Beef World. He didn't make it out. I'm telling his story now because if you hear this, Maybe you can stop whatever lives down there. If you are reading these words, know that the horror never truly ends. It only waits for its next host. Stay vigilant, stay alive, and never forget, the humming is a warning.